The Coca-Cola spilled across his fragile shoulders, soaking into the faded brown jacket he had worn for years. The sticky liquid trickled down to the cracked pavement, shimmering under the pitiless afternoon sun. Around him, cruel laughter rang out, sharp, careless and loud. A group of teenage boys stood nearby, recording the scene with their phones, their amusement echoing through the street. "Look at him flinch." One of them jeered between bursts of laughter, while another tipped the bottle again, letting the soda run down the old man's neck. Beside him, an elderly woman tried desperately to wipe the mess away, her frail hands trembling as tears welled in her eyes. Not far from them, a little girl, no older than 7, cried uncontrollably, begging them to stop. Her voice cracked with desperation, but their laughter only grew harsher. If you believe kindness, respect, and second chances still matter, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness, where real stories of humanity come alive. The elderly couple were Harold and May Thompson, married for 53 years, living a quiet life in a small suburban neighborhood where everyone used to wave as they passed. Harold had once been a carpenter, and May had devoted her life to teaching children how to read. But that afternoon, they sat broken on the curb, humiliated and heartbroken, while strangers mocked them. They had just returned from the grocery store with a small bag of bread, milk, and canned soup. When they stopped to rest, a group of boys noticed them and decided to turn their cruelty into entertainment. Harold had tried reasoning with them. His voice was soft, pleading, not angry, just weary. "Please, son. We mean no harm," he had said. But compassion doesn't always reach hardened hearts. One of the boys, tall, wearing a black t-shirt and a backward cap, shook the Coke bottle and poured it over Harold's head. The others howled with laughter. One even crouched down to capture a better video angle as May wept quietly beside her husband. A few steps away stood Laya, their neighbor's granddaughter, who was visiting for the day. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she watched. Unable to bear it, she ran forward, standing protectively in front of Harold and May, her small arms stretched out as if she could shield them from the cruelty. "Please stop," she cried, her voice trembling. But instead of stopping, one of the boys snickered and filmed her too. "Look, the little hero's crying," he mocked. None of them noticed the figure walking toward them in the distance. Ethan Thompson, Harold and May's only son, had just returned from a long overseas deployment. A Navy SEAL for over a decade, Ethan had witnessed war, pain, and destruction. But nothing prepared him for what he saw that day, his aging parents being humiliated on their own street while people laughed. He had planned to surprise them that afternoon. It had been almost 2 years since his last visit. Dressed in his camouflage uniform, he was walking home when he saw the crowd. At first, he couldn't believe what he was witnessing. Then, realization hit, and his entire body tensed. His heart thundered in his chest, not from fear, but from an emotion far deeper. He took slow, deliberate steps forward, the metal tag on his vest glinting under the sun. Each step carried the weight of restrained fury. The laughter faded. One of the boys noticed him, a tall, broad-shouldered man with cold, steady eyes. Ethan didn't need to raise his voice. His presence alone silenced them. "What's so funny?" he asked quietly, his tone sharp as steel. No one replied. The boy holding the bottle dropped it, the soda fizzing out at his feet. Uncertainty spread among them like smoke. Ethan walked past them and knelt beside his parents. He took his father's trembling, sticky hand and whispered, "Dad, it's me," May gasped, a mix of relief and heartbreak in her cry. She reached for her son's arm as if to make sure he was real. The bullies began to back away slowly, but Ethan wasn't done. Rising to his full height, he faced them squarely. "You think this is funny?" he said, his voice low and heavy with emotion. "That's my mother and father. They built this country while you record your cruelty for likes." His eyes shone, not with rage, but with disappointment. One of the boys mumbled, "We were just joking." Ethan stepped closer. "Cruelty isn't a joke," he said firmly. "You don't tear people down to feel strong. Real strength is standing up for those who can't defend themselves." The street went silent. Leia, still sobbing, clung to May, who gently kissed the top of her head. Harold looked at his son, tears filling his tired eyes. "You came home," he whispered. Ethan nodded softly and helped his parents to their feet. He didn't yell, didn't threaten. He simply placed a hand on his father's shoulder and said quietly, "Let's go home, Dad." As they walked away, the bullies stood frozen, ashamed, speechless, and haunted by their own actions. For the first time, none of them were laughing. That evening, Ethan sat on the porch beside his parents as the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Harold leaned against his son's shoulder, weary but comforted. May watched the street in silence, her hands resting on Laya's small shoulders. Ethan stared into the fading light, realizing that some battles aren't fought in distant lands. They happen right here, in our neighborhoods, in our hearts. Before we move to the ending, tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you saw something like this? Because sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms. Sometimes they're little girls who cry for kindness, elderly couples who endure with grace, or people who choose to step forward instead of turning away. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Let's remind the world that compassion still wins, even in the face of cruelty. Because in the end, true strength isn't found in power, it's found in kindness.